Hey guys, welcome back. After the last video, I took a little breather, went, got my hair did, feel so much better. Had lunch with my very good girlfriend who's been doing my hair since high school just about. I adore her. She always puts me in a really good mood. So we had lunch, went to the hair store, got some new product, which we always love, and just had a nice couple hours to kind of regroup. I got a little bit more upset than I thought I would in the last video. I knew I'd get upset, but it's hard when you don't have to think about that stuff regularly. You know, all those initial feelings start to come back. So I've regrouped, forgot about this, totally should have worn this because it's very fitting. My Fuck Cancer shirt. It's way too big. I got it way too big because I wanted it to be something super comfortable. It's by the company Good Human, and it's one of my favorite things to wear. I wear it to Roswell all the time, and I always get multiple compliments on it. I wish they would sell it there. So I left off the last video of Eric and I driving to Roswell for the first time to meet. I don't really know what we thought we were going to be doing. So when we got there, we registered immediately. And the cool thing about Roswell is, you know, it's this massive building. The main hospital is actually only 3 floors, which is nice because it's not like it's 12 floors and you have to go to floor 11 for a bone scan, and then floor 3 for phlebotomy, and then floor 6 for a bone, you know, whatever else. So it's nice. When you first walk in, it's very warm and welcoming. It's not sterile. It doesn't really look like a hospital. They always have a volunteer there. In the lobby, playing the piano, singing, playing the guitar, playing the harmonica, one of those big like accordion things. It's just more of a relaxing environment. They have a spot coffee down there now. You know, you don't want to be there obviously, but it's kind of different than I think most hospitals, which is kind of cool. So we went, registered, and it was really kind of cool. They actually gave you, like, obviously you have to fill out a ton of paperwork. You know, you can't go in without a valid ID or your insurance card, go figure. It says right on the sheet, like, you may even need authorization before we even do any diagnostic testing. So that's a little aggravating, but it's the way of the world, unfortunately. So they give you this like expanding file folder, and it's all blue, and it's got like a little strap around it, and it has a legal pad in the back, a pen, like 5 different file folders to like put all your paperwork in, a spot in the front for business cards, you know, any other little things you need to keep in there, parking passes, and then they also give you a green card. I left mine in my wallet. I carry it with me every single day, like literally even when we travel. When we went to Ireland, Mexico, I always take it with me. Every single time you call the hospital in for whatever, they ask you for your medical ID number. It's 6 digits long. I'm assuming that's how many patients they have, which if it is, it's super scary. But mine starts with a 4. So I take it with me everywhere. It's just become, you know, second nature. The number I know by heart. It's just as important as my social or my birthday. So they give you that as well. It's like your members only card. So after we did that, I didn't actually meet a doctor yet. I just went straight for a mammogram. It says have a light meal. You can, but it could take up to 2 to 3 hours to do that. Now what I did, I have 2 little books in front of me to kind of go back a minute. This little book is something I decided after I had started having all these tests done. It says today is the day. I didn't know what for what at the time, but hoping it would be a good day. But I kept all my notes in here because there's a lot to remember, and it was just easy for me to do this, and it's small enough I can just throw it in a little bag. So that I need to reference for sure. But I have 2, 4, 5 binders here. Which is excessive, but this binder alone are just all of my itineraries from Roswell. So this has outlined on here every day, the time, what doctor, what procedure, everything, like what floor it was on, and then any special instructions for the tests that I would have to have. So I don't know why I kept all of this. I went through like 4 of those Roswell like binders or the files that they gave us, and it was just way too much to keep. You accumulate paperwork very fast. So I put everything in binders. I don't know why I did, but I'm kind of glad I did, because I'm using it now as a point of reference. There's no way to remember all of this. So so we went in for the mammogram, and it's nice because it tells you right on here, like if you had mammograms within the last 5 years, bring all of your films, contact that doctor, and then send everything over. They also wanted a list of any doctors that may have had a part in this diagnosis, any prescription, non-prescription, supplements, herbals, vitamins that you were taking. They really wanted everything, that you can just hand to them when you get there. So it's nice to kind of have that so you know what to expect and don't show up empty-handed. So had the mammogram first, which I had just had the day prior, which seemed a little excessive, but hey, if you need to do it again and maybe find something different or nothing at all, I'm all for it. So Thursday, May 21st, 2015, they did the mammogram again. They did another ultrasound on both tumors, and then also in my axillary lymph node, because there was a swollen one there as well. They wound up doing 3 biopsies in all the same places, and they used an ultrasound to find them. And what they did with the biopsies was, if you've ever had one before, it's very not pleasant. They have this like tube, and it has this little claw on the end of it, and it's just like this little teethy claw thing. And so the one tumor, again, was under my nipple. The other one was up here. They made an incision over here and slid it all the way through my breast tissue. And then the claw essentially ripped part of the tumor away from the rest of it so they could send it off to pathology. Very unpleasant. They don't give you anything to like make you more comfortable or a little loopy. I wish I would have known what Xanax was at that time, because I probably would have asked for one. They do take a little break in between all of them, which I was glad, because I almost threw up after every single one. The pain was so bad. Maybe they do it differently elsewhere. Not very pleasant for me. So then after that, I had blood work done. By the end of the day, it was just exhausting. I had been there, let's see, we checked in at 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't think we left till 5. I know that it was dark out. No, it couldn't have been that late because it was May. I know it was late. So I was mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. I hurt, and had to get blood work done. And I'll never forget this guy in phlebotomy. Younger guy, had these wild like Hawaiian tattoos all the way up his arm. I was just crying. I couldn't help it. There were just tears coming down my face. And he was super sweet. He's like, obviously it wasn't a good day today. And he shared with me his story. And he was a current patient as well. He had lymphoma or leukemia. I don't remember which one, but he had told me he had lived in Hawaii. He moved back here when he was diagnosed, and he started working there as a phlebotomist. And he takes the pill every day, and they essentially saved his life. So it was super sweet of him. He obviously didn't have to share all that with me, but the longer I've been there, the more I realize a lot of cancer patients actually work there, patients, survivors. And it's comforting because they kind of know what you're going through. It's not the exact same. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but it's nice to have that reassurance that you're not alone. That's all they do there. So everyone's there for the same reason, but it's just a little reassuring. So, went home, and I had an MRI a breast MRI the next day. And I had always heard horror stories on how people get super claustrophobic and the sound, and everyone freaks out over them. So I just Googled, what is an MRI machines sound like, and it's weird. It's very loud. It's unpleasant. But with the breast MRI, you actually lay on your stomach, and there's like this chest pad that like separates your breast, and they just lay open in this area. And then they slide you on your stomach back. So when you open your eyes, you're staring at nothing essentially. You're not opening your eyes and having, 2 inches between your forehead and this machine making this crazy noise. So I didn't think it was that bad. The noise was obnoxious, but that was really it. So those biopsies were sent out for pathology. Now that weekend was Memorial Day weekend. So of course I had to wait an extra day to get my results in, which was really aggravating. Like, why? Just one day was excruciating at that point. So, but what are you going to do? So I didn't wind up going back until that following Wednesday. So May 27th, I had an ultrasound on my left axillary lymph nodes to see, because there was an issue with this one. There was nothing in my left breast at all, but they wanted to make sure to check the lymph nodes as well on this side. Now, at about noon that day, and my mother, I think just my mother went with me to this one. I had genetic screening done, and I met with a genetic counselor. She was wonderful. And basically, they were trying to figure out, like, why is this happening to you? You're 29 years old. I had no family history of breast cancer. I was perfectly healthy. Like, I'm not kidding. I've never broken a bone. I've never had surgery, unless you count LASIK and my wisdom teeth coming out. I have no allergies. I'm not allergic to medications. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. So they're trying to figure out, there has to be something just internally that's causing this to happen. So the genetic screening, all it is blood work, but it has to be shipped out to a special lab. Mine was going to California. Not all insurance companies cover it because it's not like a necessary thing. My case kind of was. So we had gone in, and again, my mom was with me, thank goodness, because the counselor that I had sat with, she had asked me not only all of my history of anything that I had had, but my whole family's history. So my mom's parents, my dad's parents, my sister, their kids, she built a whole family tree. And we've had 4 deaths in my family due to cancer. So I always knew I'd have it again, just not at 29. So we went through it, and I know that my dad's parents had both had cancer. My grandmother had it first. But that generation does not really share that information. We know that she had like a urine bag, but we didn't really know. We couldn't remember if it was ovarian, if it was bladder. We just weren't really sure, but we knew it was something like that. My grandfather had colon cancer. My father, unfortunately, had cancer when he was 45, and he was diagnosed in July of 1999, and he wound up passing away in March of 2000. So he was not sick very long. He had small cell carcinoma, and it wound up being everywhere, which sucked. My mother's father had brain cancer, and he had gone to Roswell. He referred to them as the spa, and I know why now. It seems a little weird, but I totally agree with him. Like, people don't want to be there, but if you got to be somewhere, it's the place to be. So but then not only did we have to know like what type of cancer they had, we had to know when did they die. any specifics about it, any other medical conditions that they had. You know, my dad had high cholesterol. My mom's father had a pacemaker. He was diabetic. So they, like, everything they needed to know. And a lot of that, there was no way I'd be able to answer on my own. So I was really lucky to have her there. So that was a very long appointment. I did wind up having the blood work done then. And then they sent it off, and that was a while to wait for. I think we had to wait a couple weeks for it to come back, at least a week, because we didn't start. No, it was at least a couple weeks. Because I'm trying to remember now. There's like 28 or 32 genetic defects that you can have, and they only tested me for the first 5 because two of them were the BRCA genes, which were probably the most common for people to know of. And then there were 3 others. One of them, if I would have had radiation, having that gene, it would have like spread my cancer even more, if I remember that correctly. So that we kind of needed to know before, you know, we knew exactly what treatment we were starting. So that took a while to come back. So after I met with her, I had a CT scan of my chest, my abdomen, and my pelvis. So we wanted to make sure that it wasn't spreading, that it hadn't spread. Typically, breast cancer will go to bones. So the next morning, I was there at 7:30, and Thursday, May 28th, and I had a bone scan. So a couple hours before that, they put an injection in your hand, and you have to wait, and then they do the bone scan. And they did it for 2 different reasons. One, to make sure it did not spread to my bones, or find out, I guess, if it did, but also to check my bone density for a later reason. I had more blood work. Then I went to the breast center, and that's where I had the initial consultation with... Excuse me. Do you have something to say? This is Lexi, and she probably wants to go outside. You have to wait a couple minutes. So that's the first time I sat down with my breast surgeon and my oncologist. So that conversation, I just want to make sure nothing else happened in between. Yeah. So that conversation was I don't know if we had the I don't know if we had the biopsies back yet. Now I'm trying to remember. But the conversation that we had, you know, and they sit you down in the consult room, which is a very scary room because it's the room, you know, not a great conversation is about to happen. So we sit down, and it's me, my mother, and Eric, and we sit down, and they go over... No, we didn't have the results back yet. No, we definitely didn't. So anyways, they sit us down in this room, and the worst part about all this is up until they get the biopsy results back, they all just tiptoe around what they really want to say, which is super aggravating. Like, if I have cancer, just tell me. Like, we don't need to like walk around it. I just want to know so we can just figure it out and move on. So we sit down, and the breast surgeon tells us that, you know, they're thinking that essentially because I have more than one tumor, because it has spread, I'm looking like I'm stage 2, like a late stage 2. They would need the biopsy results to confirm that, and there's like other markers and stuff they have to look for as well. But they every time. So we had to wait for that, for like the official, but you know, they had said from everything that we see, it looks like invasive ductal carcinoma, and you know, you're probably stage 2, and you know, you're gonna have it rough. I would basically need every treatment that was out there. And I had options, you know. So it was weird because like they couldn't definitely tell me, but then they're talking about chemo and radiation and surgery and endocrine therapy. You know, it were literally talking about the next 10 years of my life in treatment, but they can't definitively tell me that I have cancer. So she goes through and kind of gives us a summary of what, you know, they're thinking just clinically from what they see. And, you know, my boyfriend says, well, so what if it comes back and it's not cancer? And she basically just looked at him dead in the eye and said, then it doesn't make sense with everything we're seeing and we'd have to do everything all over again. And I lost it. You know, and the whole time, like I had, like you just know, like I just watch people's faces and you know, like you just pick up on it. And, you know, the first thing I said to Eric was, what are you going to do? We had been together for 6 years at that point. But it's not something he signed up for. And he looked at me. And I'm pretty sure he told me I was an asshole. Like, how dare I even question what he's going to do? But I didn't feel that it was fair to him that he'd have to be stuck in, who knows, you know, what we would wind up going through. And I just didn't think it was fair to him. So, you know, then my mom, of course, she feels like it's her fault, which it wasn't. She couldn't have known. No one plans that. No one doesn't have a kid because they think one day they might have cancer, or something bad might happen to them. So it was just bad. I mean, it's the last thing you ever could imagine hearing. And it literally, even though I already knew, like, it just changes everything about your life from that point going forward. So, you know, Dr. Young, or my breast oncologist, my breast surgeon, had actually told me, you know, you're going to have everything. You're going to wind up having chemo, which will be really aggressive, and you will lose your hair, and you will not feel good. You will not be able to work. I will have no immune system because the 2 tumors in my breast and then in the lymph nodes, because they were so spaced apart, I would have to have a mastectomy. I could not have a lumpectomy because they were just too far. I would have to have radiation, 30 treatments of it every single day. That would only be a minute long, but we would have to do that to kill any really, really tiny cells. And that we would go in order. And I had asked her, you know, can I just have a double mastectomy? Like, can you just get rid of them and give me new ones? Like, why would I not have both of them removed? You know, not only for symmetry, I'm 29, I'd kind of like to look like a normal person after all this, but also, like, why would I allow myself to even possibly have a risk of it going from my right to my left? Because that's just the way I felt. I know a lot of people don't feel that way, and I'm not saying that's the way it should be done, but for me, I just get rid of all of it. They're small, I've never liked them anyways, just give me new ones. So that's what we were left with. And then we had to wait to have the actual diagnosis to really put the actual plan in place. Changed our lives forever. But it is what it is. So after that, I had gone home that night, and, you know, in the the book that the like little file folder that they give you, there's all sorts of resources in there. One for, you know, Susan G. Komen from the Breast Center, one from the American Cancer Society, and places you can go on and read and get information. And I had gone on that night because what else do you do? And you know, in between crying, while crying, I had gone on, and I don't remember what site it was, but there was a woman who had kind of shared her story. And, you know, because like when you first open it, it's like, you know, when you're diagnosed, like what were you going through? And that's what I was like trying to figure out. Like, how should I be feeling? What should I be doing? How, you know, like I needed direction since my mind was just everywhere. So I read this woman's story on when she was first diagnosed, and it was awful. I mean, she had just said basically she curled up in a ball and didn't get out of her bed for 3 weeks and just wanted nothing to do with anyone and just couldn't breathe and just couldn't function as a person. And I closed it. And I said to myself, I'm done. I'm never, ever going to act like that. I'm not going to allow this to take over my life. Like, it's already going to take enough. I'm not going to let it control me in every facet. Like, we need to go and be with our friends and go have a drink and celebrate life. Because it's too damn short. And I wasn't going to be that person. So I wasn't. So we waited. This is harder than I thought. We waited until the biopsy came back and knew the exact diagnosis and made our game plan. So that's what the next video will be about. I thank everyone for watching. Please, if you have any comments, leave them below. I want to be able to answer anything, or if there's something I forgot, please remind me, because I'm sure there is. Also, please like the video if you did. Subscribe to my channel so I can take you on this crazy journey with me. I promise there's more heavy videos to come. We just got to get through the tough ones first. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.